Hi, Tara. How are you?
I'm good, Miss. How are you?
I'm good. Right, so before we get started on your question, I wanted to just kind of do a quick review of what the Tollund Man is about. So I'll give you about five, ten
Okay.
minutes to prep what you know about it, and then we'll discuss it for the first
All right.
30 minutes, and then we'll move on to attempting the question.
Okay, Miss. Yeah. All right.
All right, perfect. Walk me through what you know.
So it's one of Heaney's bog poems. This one was discovered in Jutland, Denmark in I think 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And the body was so well preserved that the police thought it was a murder victim.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's still in Aarhus Museum today
Mm-hmm.
because the remains were too fragile to be carried anywhere else.
Okay.
Um, it's the man is a victim of a ritual sacrifice, I think, or religious sacrifice. Um, and it sort of um, shows it reflects the Irish troubles, the way people die for their beliefs or um, religious beliefs or political beliefs, which is something Heaney lived through.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of uses this to indirectly um comment on the troubles without specifically directly mentioning it. Um the imagery there's a lot of imagery of uh fertility, I think. Um and the there's also a religious metaphor as well, like the saint's kept body, and yeah, and it sort of shows like the purity of the body, and um
And do you think it's linked to any other of his poems?
it could be like to Bog Queen.
Mm-hmm. Or the Grabal Man?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because the Grabal Man was also about the discovery of a bog man, man buried in the bog, and having those same characteristics of being preserved. And a little bit history on this is that on Monday 8th in the 1950s, the police in Silkeborg received an alarming message. On the previous Saturday, a body had been discovered in a bog close to this place, 10 miles to the south. And it was eventually discovered that the body was the preserved corpse of a man from the first part of the Iron Age, from 300 to 400 BC. Obviously, this was a little bit different from the Gabor man. This one was more obvious that it was a sacrificial killing. With the Gabor man, if we go back to it, we can see how um, there was the body, but we didn't know how this person had died. It was that he must have been part of a human sacrifice because his throat was slit, but this one was for 100% sure that with the rope around his neck was the way that he killed. His body was probably a sacrificial killing. Was he guilty or was he not guilty? Those were questions that were raised by the people who discovered the body. Now, this is what the Tollund Man looked like. You can see the kind of like news here, right? You can see it that neck. And these are just a few quotations from Heaney himself. that when he saw this body, it seemed like an ancestor, almost like one of his old uncles, because of those mustached archaic faces that you used to see in the Irish countryside. And as you mentioned, because of the political uproar that was happening in Ireland at that time, and he having have experienced that firsthand, it reflected a lot into his writing. And that's why he saw the analogy between the glob's bog bodies and the victims of the Irish political violence as something similar to each other. And he was then influenced by the Danish anthropologist Glob's book, The Bog People. And he saw it as a concept of rebirth. This poem particularly was a confrontation with the troubles of what the Ireland or the Irish faced as per the sectarian political violence in the 1960s to the 1998. And this poem was some kind of like attempt to create a sense of continuity, kinship, a formation between the historical past and the political present. He was trying to build connections. He was trying to build a storyline from what would happen before and what was happening now. This poem was obviously divided into three. So this is also known as one of the songs that he has written, but it has been divided into three parts. So part one is 5 stanzas, part two is 3 stanzas, and part three is 4 stanzas with one monostitch stanza, like the one that's one single line. And overall, we have around, I think, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stanzas in this entire poem. I'm just going to keep the screen open for you at two stanzas at a time, just so that you can kind of go through the notes on the screen and let me know if you have any questions in regards to this. And then I'll move on to the next stanzas.
Miss, could you scroll up a bit so I can see the context for it? I just want to take a few points down.
Do you want to what?
The context part, the context points. I just want to take a few of them down.
Oh, I'll just send it to you. I'll send the file to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anything in this that is confusing so far?
Miss, could you explain the assonance of tight E sounds? I don't understand that.
Yeah, so assonance as we know it is the repetition of vowel sounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So repetition, vowel sounds. Over here in particular, we're focusing on the sounds of E. Now, the tight E sounds is that what we're referring to is when we say will as well, right? We're not pronouncing it as the I sound, we're pronouncing it as the E sound, right? So I will his Pete to see all of those different tight E sounds contribute to the imagery that has been created at the beginning from like the first line. That entire imagery that we started off from at the beginning, like someday I will go to our house, right? We know what our house is. It means natural. We know that it's a place in Germany, I think. And is it in Germany? Do you remember where our house is?
It's in Denmark, I
Denmark,
think.
Denmark. Yeah, Denmark, Denmark. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. So automatically having created a place, like the name of a place, we have a good image of what we're referring to. The further enunciation or the further assonance of tight E sounds just contributes to that imagery. It again, so for a deeper understanding of this, you need to have a good understanding of the our house museum, okay, and of the term ekphrasis. Let me highlight those terms for us. As you mentioned that this is something that is at the museum, right? So
Mhm.
ekphrasis is actually a term that ekphrasis basically refers to detailed description of a work of art as a literary device. So we're referencing a lot of different things in this particular stanza. We're referencing the our house in Denmark. We're referencing the museum aspect of our house in Denmark. And we are trying to create the imagery of what is presented at the museum. And the assonance of the E sounds just further emphasizes or further highlights that set of images in context to the ekphrasis, and ekphrasis is just how people understand art, how they're able to describe art. And we know that art is not something that is understood by everyone, right? Art is very exquisite, it's very eclectic. No two people will have the same opinion about art, and no two people will see art the same way. In fact, you may be able to understand art and I might not be able to understand art at all, right? We have people who are blind to art and the meaning of art as well. Okay. So it's a whole connected kind of idea. And each of these terms have to be understood separately. Okay. When we look
Mhm.
at the phrase here as well, anatomical imagery, what do you understand?
Um, Imagery of think the body.
Some part of the body, right? So this particular paragraph is isolating one specific anatomical part. Which part is that?
The eyes.
The eyelids, right? Then we also have the head, and we also have the skin. So all three of these aspects that have been highlighted have been connotated as anatomical imagery because we are imagining parts of the body.
Mhm.
So these E sounds just kind of create emphasis on that anatomical imagery as we understand the meaning of art, because at the end of the day, this particular body being presented at the museum, being displayed at the museum, is a form of art, is now being looked at as something with meaning, something that needs to have a perspective, something that needs to have, um, you know, an understanding of its own.
Mhm.
So he's trying to tell us how this imagery, he's trying to create this imagery around the face, particularly his head, his eyelids, the skin, and help us imagine what it is that he's going to our house to see. Because it says, someday I will go to our house to see. So that imagery that is being perpetrated is the image of what he is going to see once he goes there.
All right.
Anything else?
This is the symbol of regeneration. Like, how does it connect to the troubles?
So, symbol of regeneration and renewal suggests motives for the pagan sacrifice. So, he's trying to connect to the fact that the pagan sacrifice was made in hopes or in attempts of regeneration and renewal. The pagans believed that if they sacrificed someone or sacrificed something, it was bound to renew their life, renew their beliefs, and regenerate them, right? And so this primitive belief of the pagan sacrifice is something that he connects to the troubles that he faced as an Irish person. So not like troubles in general, like troubles of what the Irish faced.
Miss, how is it like how is that related to the sacrifice?
This is the troubles that we're referring to here. The troubles are
This
that,
is
yeah, what they were facing, the sectarian political violence that the Ireland or the Irish faced in the 1960s to the 1998 over the GF agreement. Whatever struggles they were facing is what he saw reflected in this particular image or this particular person. Even when we come here and we look at this here, he saw an analogy between globs bog bodies and the victims of the political violence. So because he had experienced the violence that had taken place in Ireland at that time, he knew what the bodies looked like, right? He knew what
Mhm.
they looked like. And when he saw this body, it reminded him of that political violence. It reminded him of what the people in Ireland looked like. That's why we see troubles being repeated throughout and throughout. Like even the symbol here is connected to the troubles meaning the political violence that the Irish faced. That's what he saw in this person. That's what he saw in this image. Like whatever he saw in this bog man and this Tollund man, it reminded him of the struggles that he as an Irish faced, or the people he knew, or his family as the Irish faced. So the troubles is in relation to the political disagreement that was going on in Ireland at that particular time, and how they were beaten to death and tortured.
All right, Miss.
This is stanza 3 and 4. Was there anything else in the previous two stanzas?
Miss, could I see it again?
Yeah, yeah.
No, Miss, that's it.
Okay. Just read through it. I'll be right back.
All right, miss.
Are you done?
Yes, miss.
Right. Okay. Which parts didn't you understand? Was there anything confusing?
Miss, the part about the metaphor of the open field.
Okay. She tightened her talk on him and opened her fen. Those dark juices working him to a saint's kept body. Do you know what the word fen means?
No, miss.
So fen is basically a marshy land, right? Low-lying marshy land, usually something that is frequently flooded all the time. That's why it's marshy, that's why it's wet. And if we connect it to the stanza above, right? Naked except for the cap, noose, and girdle, I will stand a long time, bridegroom to the goddess. It is a continuation from that idea, okay, of her being a bridegroom, of this person being a bridegroom to the goddess. Bridegroom is obviously the husband to be. And this speaker is referring to her as a goddess and how she tightened her talk on him. And we need to first understand the first metaphor, which is the talk. And the talk is actually a neck ornament, right? So it's actually like a type of necklace that looks like chains wrapped around, like rope wrapped around, resembling a noose, resembling a rope. So the first metaphor she tightened her talk on him is referencing how her necklace kind of represented the noose that had strangled him, that had killed him. But it is suggestive of a sexual interaction because of how he is the groom to her goddess. He's her husband, so there is some kind of sexual connotation to them having a kind of relationship with each other. And the second metaphor, which is that fen being referenced, that open field, again becomes a very sexualized field to fit in with the ritualistic narrative. Like, so back in the days, right, sometimes it was very important that if you were sacrificing someone for a ritual, that you must have been married to that person or that you must have been sexually involved with that person. A lot of that had to be taken into considerations because there were different type of rituals. Some rituals required virgins, some rituals required sinners, some rituals required something else. So every type of sacrificial ritual had a specification to it, and it needed a specific type of person. So in this particular situation, the narrative that has been created for the ritualistic aspect is one of between a bridegroom and a goddess, okay, and how she kind of sacrificed him for her own renewal of life, and how she wanted to kind of regenerate herself and regenerate her beauty and uh her beauty and her youth.
Mm-hmm.
So this entire stanza kind of focuses on that part of their relationship and the part of their sacrifices.
Isn't it sort of like those like insects or animals that murder, like that kill and like eat their
Like cannibals?
mates after they're done? Like they eat their mates after they're done.
Yeah, like
Doing
cannibals,
mantises,
right?
I think. Yeah.
But yeah, but I don't know if there's a connection to that. Maybe we can take a look into it later on,
Mhm.
but I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yes, please.
Anything else that was confusing here?
Miss, could you explain the personification?
Yeah. So remember in the Graball Man when we talked about the bog, we talked about how the bog was dark and gooey, like it had a very dark color to it, very black almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those dark juices working him to a saint's kept body. Even in the Grobal Men, we referenced how it was because of the bog's texture and whatever the bog had in it, right? That marshy land, whatever it had that had preserved the body. So in this case, it had personified the water of the bog as something acidic, something that um added or like what do you call it? There's a specific word. Yeah. So let's forget the word. Basically, it's just referencing how the bog has been personified as something that was working. So the working is the part that's personified, right? The bog is an inanimate object. We're giving it the characteristics of a human, and we're saying that the bog had worked to preserve the body. Whatever was present in the bog had preserved the body, had worked towards preserving the body, had done something to make sure, was continuously working and doing something to make sure that the body would not decay over time.
Mhm.
So the personification comes into the working verb, where we're insinuating that the juices of the water in the bog or the bog water body itself was working to preserve the body.
All right. So,
We have stanza 5 of part 1 and stanza 1 of part 2. Was there anything else above?
oh no, miss, that's all.
Just go through stanza 5 of the first part for now.
Okay, miss. Miss, I went through stanza 5.
Okay, so anything in stanza 5 that's confusing? Maybe anthemeria is something that's new for you.
Yes, miss. Yeah.
Okay, you've never heard of it before?
No, Miss, I haven't.
Okay, so antimeria basically is the technique of turning a noun into a verb. Okay, so let me write that down. Antimeria. Usually a noun to a verb, so changing one part of speech into another, but usually it's a noun that's been changed into a verb. So in this case, honeycomb is what we're referring to. Honeycomb is actually a noun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what honeycomb is?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so when we add ed at the end, we've turned it into a verb. That's what we're referring to the antimeria here. So it has represented the dig as something dynamic and fluid, and it has mirrored the fluidity of truth in the poem. Because this poem is a lot of truth, a lot of honesty. It is descriptive of the harsh reality of what the Irish had gone through, the traumas that they had faced, the troubles that they had faced. All of that truth is what we're covering in this poem, or what Seamus Heaney is basically covering in this poem. So that antimeria just further represents that fluidity and that honesty in the poem. Again, a lot of the techniques are always there for more emphasis on something that has already been said or already been mentioned. It's not necessary that every technique has a new purpose.
Miss, could you repeat that point about the connection to the troubles?
Yeah, so I'm saying that Seamus Heaney's poem, especially this one, was like a truth or like a poem of honesty about how he had connected what the people in the bog had suffered to the people of Ireland, and how the Irish had suffered and the troubles that they had gone through. So in a way, this entire poem
Right.
was like a poem of honesty,
Mm-hmm.
where he was covering the troubles that they had faced.
All right.
Now we have the dental alliteration here as well, the trove of the turf cutters, which is focusing on the t t t t t sound. Again, it's emphasizing the digging sound that is related to the field of archaeology and how they have to kind of dig through a lot of sand and dig through a lot of ground to get what they want, or to extract what they want. So the trove of the turf cutters, again, those T sounds, those dental alliterations, just further focus on the sound of digging and the delicacy involved around the concept of archaeology.
All right.
So dental alliteration is actually not just T. So dental alliteration is either a D sound or a T sound. D or T are repeated throughout a stanza or a line in poetry. And the reason why we call them dental is because of how the sound comes off, bouncing off our upper teeth when we speak. So when we say trove of the turf cutters, we almost feel our tongue hitting the upper teeth, right? So that's why we say these are dental sounds, because the D and the T sounds, when we pronounce them, they're always hitting the top of our teeth, the upper teeth. That's why the dental word comes in from there.
All right.
Anything else? Do you know what lexical choice
Um,
means?
it's like the choice of words, right?
Yeah, choice of words, exactly, choice of diction.
Yes, miss, that's it.
So yeah, this is where we can end for today. And then our 2-hour class on Friday, we can continue with parts 2 and 3 and attempt the question because we'll have a longer class so we can get through a lot more.
All right, miss.
All right, perfect. Any questions for today?
No, miss, that's it.
Okay, so we'll cover
Miss,
the
could you
Tollund.
send the context points, please?
Yes. I'll send them to you right away. Okay,
Miss.
take care. Bye.
You too, miss. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.